Friday night, time once again for a Friday live chat here on the Paranormal Network. I am network manager, sometimes paranormal investigator Jason Hewlett here, joined by Mythery's very own Jessica Dwyer. Welcome back, Jessica.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's been since Christmas, I think, when we were talking Krampus. So
true. It's been like, oh man, wow, 7 months.
Yeah, already, right? I know. And recently on Mytheries, we had the story of Annabelle. The true story of Annabelle. And
Yes.
Jessica's friend Z is a paranormal investigator, and she is an Annabelle fanatic, would you say, Z? Enthusiast?
Enthusiast, sure. I mean, I love a haunted, possessed doll, but usually when it's haunting or possessing someone else.
Yes, of course.
That's not an invitation to come to her home at all, spirits.
My house is already haunted. I do a lot of thrifting, so I've had a few experiences with things I've brought home from, the Goodwill, but namely.
That's awesome.
Oh no!
Oh wow!
Yeah.
That's not the Annabelle, though.
No.
I've actually held the movie Annabelle. The movie Annabelle is about the same height as Z is, and
I am a small person.
She is, that doll is they set it up on the set. I was on the set of the second Annabelle movie, and I walked around the corner and there she was sitting on the couch. They had her waiting for us.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, is that planned? like that doll, it doesn't look a thing like a Raggedy Ann doll, but it is quite imposing, and I got to hold her, and somewhere out there are photos.
Which, and that's a good point that you bring up, Jess, and something that, like, because one thing we're going to do here, because there's a lot of people know Annabelle from the Conjuring films, right? And I know, being a paranormal guy, I knew that Annabelle was a Raggedy Ann doll, and not the doll that they showed in the movie.
Right.
So I'd like to kind of go between the fact and the fiction of this. So based on the Conjuring, what did they get right in the Conjuring and Annabelle films, from what you guys basically know there?
Ed and Lorraine Warren were involved.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah, that was a big one.
And there was a haunted, possessed doll.
Yes, and the doll would. One thing that the original Annabelle movie did get right was it was set in the correct time period, I believe, but it was taking place with a family, not a young woman, single woman who had a roommate.
Yeah.
And so it made it, the thing with and I pointed this out in the episode, the thing that makes Annabelle terrifying was there was no reason for it to have happened. Like they weren't out trying to find a spirit. They weren't doing a Ouija board. It just was a mass-produced doll. That
just because things are mass-produced,
right,
doesn't mean you can't get ghosts.
Correct. And so
that's where the doll came from. They the girl Donna, she was a nursing student.
Yep.
Her mom bought it for her at a secondhand store, like I was saying, like a Goodwill.
Yep.
If you want to get ghosts, it might be a good way to get ghosts, or in this case,
a demon. Yeah, and so it just was a normal, and it was a doll that at the time was very popular and had no connections. There was no reason behind it. It just, regular people got it, and it happened to them, and that means it could happen to anyone. And that's like the true terrifying aspect of this, is that they just randomly got the pull that straw.
Now, what was, so, and I know there's a whole movie about the creation of the doll and all this stuff, but I'm sure that's total fiction. So why was this doll possessed? Like, do we know why this doll was possessed? Has that ever been revealed?
So, and this, and Z, if feel free to add if I'm getting this wrong. What my research found was that the doll, if you can believe the doll or the spirit within the doll, stated that they had died in that location. That was a young girl who had died in that area around where the apartment complex was. And the girl was saying her name was Annabelle, and she liked the girls, and she felt happy to be around them. And that's their big mistake that they made, was because they said, oh sure, you can stick around, don't ever do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's even in the movie that apparently happened. That was the story that they were told, right?
Yeah,
And then
and
the movie that they played that up a bit.
Yeah, that's one of many stories, urban legends, whatever, kind of like a game of telephone, where it just maybe somewhere in there that there's some truth into how the doll came to be haunted, possessed, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that's basically the gist, that either the little girl died on the property and liked the doll as a ghost and just wanted to be, noticed or whatever, and became the doll or moved the doll herself, or there are other versions where the little girl lived there lived somewhere nearby with the doll, loved the doll, died, and then the doll was put in a thrift store and gifted, and so she was just kind of a spirit attachment with the doll. But who's to say at the end of the day how she really became Annabelle? Because according to other versions, the little girl, number one, was just a front for a demon who was working on, possessing the Donna, the nurse student, and her friend, and wreaking havoc and mayhem and murder all over the place. So, however it came to be, I say is questionable at best.
Yeah, the Warrens, Lorraine specifically had said that, demons cannot possess an inanimate object, that it needs a living host, and that was what they were using this to do, and to leech onto Donna. And apparently the entity really didn't like her boyfriend.
No.
Really did not.
What happened there with that? Because that wasn't really in the movie. They didn't really mention that at all.
No.
They just students, right?
No. He was the one that was attacked by the doll
A couple of times.
Mm-hmm. There was one time, I believe, that because the doll at this point had been like, just little things, like they would come home and she would be in a different place, and they're like, did you move the doll? Like, no, I didn't. Maybe I did. Just one of those things that you kind of like gaslight yourself. You're like, maybe I'm insane. I don't know. If it had been me, I'd be like, I probably definitely moved it.
I'm going to take the doll and burn the doll. That's going to be my next.
That would be my next move as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, just deal with this now.
Let's
Get this out
burn
of
it,
the way.
and then burn the ashes and scatter them to
and then take them to the salt flats and throw them in there.
Goodbye.
Yeah, that's
just little things at first, and then she did not like the boyfriend. I think his name is Lou.
Lou, I think, is the name. It's you can different story has a different name, but I think the big one was Lou.
Yeah, he got scratched, like attacked,
clawed
in bed, and all bad. Just
the one that stuck with me and that I included in the episode was him waking up and seeing the doll crawling up his body while he was asleep on the couch and eventually strangling him. And he wakes up from this nightmare and the doll is sitting at the end of the couch.
Which that's creepy enough in its own right. Right? Before, like,
No.
We got a comment here actually. From Dark of the Moon Video, because we were joking about burning it, but he says, don't burn it. It releases the demon. Contain it in blessed salt.
That's why I said the salt flats.
After burning?
Yes.
Oh,
yes, throw it in the salt flat.
But that might have released it by then. right? Like,
it could depend on what entity is actually in there.
Yeah.
I know, did they ever, just to backtrack a bit, did they ever determine what specific kind of entity was in Annabelle,
They
or it
just a
remains in
demon.
Annabelle?
Just,
Blanket
Just a
demon.
demon.
yeah,
Blanket
just a demon.
Yeah, and the Warrens, again, very Catholic. So their brand of investigating is far different from mine personally, a bunch of other people's. I don't like using the word demon when it comes
Same.
to anything paranormal because it's a really loaded term. And there are lots of demons, and not like in the Judeo-Christian sense of the word demon, like biblical, scary, Satan adjacent kind of, but that's not always the case, depending on where you're from, what you're talking about. There are elemental creatures, there are demons, the DAE, daemons, if you will. There's Prince Stolas, who is an owl demon that, likes to make you read. So
Well, and depending upon what you're looking at too, like it's way back to one of the original episodes of the show. I talked about Lilith and
Mhm.
how the way you fight Lilith is bring in Pazuzu, who,
Yeah, another demon.
if you've seen The Exorcist, you kind of don't want to do that.
No, it's
But
bad to bring Pazuzu to
Zeus
play.
is a bad name from that movie because he's like the demon of weather or something. I have to look now. That's driving me insane. Hello.
but yeah, I mean it's interesting. Like I researching this, I went and looked up other things that, like, has anybody really videotaped or had, interactions with thank you, Brian, have
King of the
interactions with the doll. I'm sorry.
Pazuzu,
Yeah,
King
thank you,
of
Brian.
the Wind.
The wind, yeah, because he's got the wings. Yeah.
I was like, I knew something that had to do with weather. It's wind specifically.
But I found a video that oh, I'm blanking on the name of the group. Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
But they have a series of paranormal investigation shows that they do, and they went and this was before the Warrens Museum was closed, and they went in and they put the flashlights on either side of Annabelle, and it worked. Like they were communicating with the doll. One of them would go in. Yeah. One of them would go in and then the other would go in. And the one was completely baiting her. And one thing that you have learned after you've read about Annabelle is you don't bait or taunt the Annabelle. You walk away slowly and wave to Annabelle politely.
Yeah.
Or things happen to you.
Yeah, it's said that, if she feels like it, she can still come for you from behind her special case. So
Yeah.
Now, and because there's something there, like that's somewhere where my knowledge of Annabelle gets a bit ignorant. Is after the Warrens sort of took her into their place. I'm glad you touched on this kind of stuff in the episode, Jessica. Like they say she's so dangerous, but what has she done since? Do you know what I mean? That makes her so dangerous. Like, why is everyone so freaked out about this doll?
So she really, like I joke in the episode, with all due respect, Annabelle, I joked in the episode with all due respect for you. So make that very clear. She really has road rage. And like there was a priest that came, and after the Warrens to visit the Warrens in the museum, they told him, don't do what you're doing, which was taunting the doll, like saying, I don't believe in you, Annabelle. You can't do anything to me. The power of God will protect me. And he left and immediately got into a car crash where
wasn't he in a motorcycle, and then Annabelle
that's a separate one. So the priest was driving and said that he saw Annabelle in the rearview mirror in his back seat, freaked out and crashed the car. The motorcycle was a couple that had gone to the museum, was laughing at the doll, thinking, ha ha ha, she can't do anything to me. They got on the motorcycle, was still laughing about the doll and joking around, immediately crashed and killed the guy, and the girl lived barely. But that happened like after they taunted the doll. You really don't want to taunt Annabelle. It's a bad idea.
So just show respect, when
Be
in
respectful.
the
Yeah.
museum, or even now, right? Like, like you say, you're half-heartedly joking, like, but no disrespect, kind
No,
of.
yeah, no, I'm not joking. I'm the yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Total respect to you, Annabelle.
I think you have to be within earshot of her
I
for
don't
her
trust
to
it.
get pissed. It's like
No.
Robert the doll, how it said that you have
Oh,
to
yeah.
ask permission before you take a photo of him, or something horrifying will happen.
Robert the doll is a creepy, creepy bastard, and that's with all due respect, Robert. You are a creepy bastard.
Well, I can't hear you from here. I think we're okay.
Mm,
I talked
In
about it
Canada,
on my show 3 years ago, and I mean, unwell, but that is unrelated to Hannah in general.
we have Mandy here in Canada, and we actually went and investigated Mandy on We Want to Believe, and she's same thing in this cabinet at this museum, and all this stuff's supposed to happen. And we did our investigation, and we even, I'm not going to lie, became a little bit belligerent jerks because nothing was happening, and we'd driven 6 hours, and it's like, come on, nothing. So Mandy, I think you're full of poop, and I'm not afraid to say that here. I would not say that. I would not say that though to Robert or to Annabelle.
You say it to your face. Yeah, she also apparently before they built her very special case, levitated, moved around, and then she had a special prison built.
What's happened to her now, for people who don't know? Because I mean, the Warrens have now passed on. Their stuff's been sort of scattered to the wind.
As far as I know, right now the Warren Museum is closed as they are trying to figure out a new place for it because of zoning laws. They I think because it wasn't a residential area, but they were allowing tours and people to come through. So as of right now, she is still in the possession of the Warren's daughter and her husband, who they used to do videos of them taking the doll out and moving the doll and the priest blessing them. And apparently the case that Annabelle is in was actually dipped in holy water. The wood was somehow baptized in holy water that she's in. But as of right now, she's just still in their possession.
Great choice of words, Jess.
Yes. But that's what I know of right now. But Z may know more than that.
That's all I got. She's still around. She's just not being seen in the public eye right now.
Because there's been rumors like Zach Baggins wants to get his hands on her, which wouldn't surprise me at all. Like,
for the haunted museum?
Yeah.
Yes, that is a thing that is true. But clearly not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to let her go, especially to Zach Baggins.
Go to anybody, but there was some kind of beef between them. The husband, I forget it, the Warren son-in-law, I forget his name.
Tony. I think it's Tony.
Yeah. And the Ghost Adventures crew, there was some kind of beef. I did not care to look into it too deeply because I'm like, sure, that's not my circus and not my monkeys, or rather not my museum and not my haunted doll. Like, you guys are adults, you can figure it out, or not. I don't care either. But yeah, that's the last, and this was a few years ago now that there was some kerfuffle, and I'm like,
I honestly think I think most of that would probably be not the beef, I have no idea, but the fact that Zach Baggins would probably pop it right in the middle of his museum, and everybody and their brother could come near it and do whatever without any kind of sort of
safety
precaution. Or
I've not been to the museum, but from what I've heard from other people there, it's all pretty well cordoned off, especially the more serious and sinister items. But if you're sensitive to that in any way, shape, or form, it won't matter if it's behind glass or you're touching it, like holding it on your lap. If you're sensitive to that stuff, then it's not really gonna matter what barrier is there. It's still gonna bother you.
Yep.
And here's sort of my next question. Like, do you think there's really anything to this Annabelle story, or do you think it's just been more Hollywood has taken it and run with it and sort of blown it up bigger than it actually is?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I definitely feel that there was obviously something there to begin with. Do I think a Raggedy Ann doll was running amok inside of somebody's apartment trying to murder somebody? Maybe not. But who am I to say? I wasn't there.
I think we can very confidently say, yes, they expanded and blew it up beyond what it was. Was it real? Was it terrifying? Was it something that actually happened to these people?
Something happened.
Something happened, and that's the part that makes it scary and makes you freaked, is that there's the possibility. And who are we to say what's true and what's not true? We weren't there. We didn't experience it. Me personally, I've dealt with supernatural happenings all the time, like throughout my life. I've had numerous encounters. I know what has happened to me. I know something pulled me down my bed one night that was not there.
I don't like it.
And I've had instances where things have pushed down on my chest while I'm in bed. Speaking of the doll thing, my husband came home one night, and he'd been playing basketball, came upstairs. I was asleep. He came in the room. He said, I sat bolt upright in the bed, looked at him like this, and just went, "Who are you? You're not supposed to be here.
I don't like it.
Who are you? You're not supposed to be here."
I don't like it.
And he said,
like that there, right? That moment was enough.
You were completely gone. You weren't there. You were like a doll. You were like completely just vacant, and you were talking to me, and I kept telling you, go back to sleep, and you kept just saying, you're not supposed to be here. And that house, we had lots of interesting things happen in. This house, we had lots of interesting things happen in. So for me to make a judgment call on, did this doll make this girl and her roommate's life hell, hurt her boyfriend, is it possible?
Entirely.
Yeah, it's entirely possible, and that's what makes it scary, and that's why we're fascinated by it.
Like, I'm not going to say that it didn't happen at all. Do I think over the years it's been like a game of telephone? Yeah, probably. Yeah. Where things have been added, changed, sure. I mean, again, paranormal investigator, haunted house, currently, choked by things, whatever. But again, I think largely the truth of what happened is probably somewhere in between what in the media, what we've been told by, because the Donna and those girls, they've never, as far as I know, given interviews or spoken about it.
Right.
Like to the Warrens in the 70s.
And that's what I wanted to bring up too, is they had, and this is, of course, we're going back many years, right? Like, oh boy, older than I am. So we're going back more than 50 years now. But there was, and taking things the Warrens have said, and it's no disrespect for them, but they've been accused before of taking things and popularizing it more than what actually happened, right? Like, so that even on that part, they're not always the most credible sources of information. I think more out of allegations than anything else. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I kind of wonder. But like you've said, Z, and you too, Jessica, you've had experiences. Mm-hmm. I've had them too. You know, so we know there is stuff going on out there, right? It's just interesting how a story's taken and run with.
And again, like one of my most favorite stories that I have ever shared on my podcast is a family from Wisconsin that just started getting horrifically tormented and haunted in their home. No idea why. And then they figured out it was the bunk beds that they had purchased at a consignment store for their kids.
The Tallman's beds, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We have that coming up on Haunted Object.
I it will never stop being the best thing I have ever told on my show, ever. And I will tell anybody about it that will listen, or even if they won't, I'll just keep talking because it's just glorious. So if there can be haunted bunk beds, there absolutely could be a haunted Raggedy Ann doll. I just think some of the details and facts have been misconstrued over time. But yes, I mean, and again, if you've got like these things, like if you believe it hard enough, then maybe you're just kind of manifesting it, like a tulpa or something, like ladies in white all over the place.
Well, and the one thing that I started off the episode with is the fact, and I ended it with this too. Dolls are inherently creepy, and they are vessels in their design. They are
You've been used in witchcraft and voodoo for centuries.
But they are, especially for children, they are a representation of a life to them. They are their friend. They are their baby. They put all of this love and care into them. They clean them. They bathe them. They play with them. And and this is the same thing that adults do. If you can see, I like action figures. I like dolls. But there you go. But as adults, there are adults that take these baby dolls that are very realistic and make them into their own child. And so it's creepy.
It's very, yeah.
but you have adults that, maybe they lost a child, maybe they never were able to have a child. They take a doll and they put their love and their life into this doll, and there are people that become obsessed with them. You're opening that door for something to happen when you do that, when you take it to that level. And it's easy to see how this could happen. If it wasn't for real life supernatural things happening in life would suck.
I know this is amazing, right?
Yeah.
I with them because I was raised on such things and obviously never grew it. Neither have we, Billy. Thank you very much.
If you can't tell.
Hit the nail on the head, brother.
But yeah, I mean, that's how I look at it. And I can totally see. That's why I think there are so many haunted dolls stories and out there in the world of the supernatural.
As far as them being vessels, though, I think it's all about the intent that you have. So if it's just a child playing with a doll and pretending it's a baby, I think it's less likely to become something with an attachment. But if you're more open to that kind of stuff and you go into, having a doll, I guess, with the intention and belief of you're like, well, that thing is haunted, then maybe it will be.
You're inviting that in.
Not now. Yeah. If it's not now, then maybe you're making it an invitation to become haunted. Like,
and
you're just like, every time you see a doll, you're like, it's haunted, it's creepy, it's haunted. Well, then that's how you get ghosts, maybe.
Well, and also I think too with the people that just become obsessed with their dolls, and there are many out there. You're kind of inviting this thing to have life, and you don't know what kind of life you're inviting into it. So that can happen with these individuals that I've seen, where they can't have a child, for example, and they have a baby, and they go out of, they create a world for this doll. And trust me, I lived in a house. My grandparents had probably 300, 400 dolls. My grandmother collected them, and they were life-size Shirley Temples, life-size Shirley Temples that would just stand there. And some of these dolls were made to where their eyes would follow you. They were designed to do that. And you haven't creeped yourself out. And that house was haunted as it could be. Filled with those.
That I feel is different than somebody having one of those like real baby dolls. Like I think real dolls? I don't know. Or is that might be something.
Real dolls, I think. No,
But-
oh wait, no wait.
Yeah, that's all
I know. I don't- not those.
those are another kind of doll that we are not
Totally different
today.
thing.
But those, the baby dolls you were talking about, I feel like those are less. It's more of just like the people that have those are going through grief usually. And I think the only thing that they're putting into those, it's kind of like an outlet. They're putting in their love and their grief
Right.
into those. But when you're talking about a haunted house that's already haunted on its own, full of old dolls, well, that is different. And that is a recipe, again, for Annabelle's, plural.
Yep. That's where I was visiting one night, and I was in my grandfather's bedroom doing my homework that was on the second story of the house, and the door to that room was beaten upon for 30 seconds, and I was like bam, 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 bam. And I got up and I opened the door, and there was no one there.
I love when that
And
happens.
everybody was downstairs. There was no one on that floor with me. And I will never forget that. That really happened.
Oh,
I'm
I
not making that up. And
don't doubt it. Don't doubt
My
it.
mom-
and
mom also collects,
that was the house that the old guy lived in
Antique
that would
dolls.
show up.
and it's rude, is what it is. I'm like, mother, why? And she just keeps them in a case. I'm like, you better, because if I wake up and one of those is missing, I will be walking home from Jacksonville, Florida to Portland, Oregon. Yeah. It's gonna be a walk. It's going to be like a Scooby-Doo cartoon or a Looney Tune where it's just me and a me-shaped cloud of smoke falling.
Yeah.
I'm like, because I can tell you right now, you got a case full of Annabelle's, Mom. And she's like, no. I'm like, but really, look at that.
No, for real.
Look at
No,
that.
that house was horribly haunted, with the old guy that would show up and berate my grandfather and asking him, what are you doing, when he was renovating the attic. We had the little boy that was actually the grandson of their minister was visiting, and went, who's that? Who?
No.
That guy in the corner.
Mm,
And there's no one there.
no.
And the smell of cigars and just
Yeah.
No.
I gotta, at least I know one of the ghosts. Well, two of my regulars. I know who they are. So that's nice. But every now and again, because again, I love to go to the thrift store. Some people just pop in, and my friend is a psychic medium, and she came to my house one time after a very particularly uncomfortable situation. And she was like, so about all of your stuff. I'm like, I had gone to the Goodwill one day, as I do, and I was like, just poking around the tchotchke section where it's like they've got all the wooden signs and the metal stuff. And I looked at one of the shelves. I'm like, that can't be what I think it is. It was, though. It was an urn. It looked like somebody had separated a loved one's ashes into smaller urns. I was like, oh, that can't be right. And I look inside, and there were some ashes still in there. I'm like,
Oh man.
Oh, that's wrong on so many levels.
it was, and I can tell you right now,
You
Grandma
thrifted
Jenny.
my grandma.
Grandma Jenny was her name, and she was pissed. She was not pleased to be at the Goodwill. I maybe accidentally stole her from the Goodwill. I put it in my cart, and then I put my purse on top of it so to keep it from rattling around because it's glass. And I went out after I made my purchase to my car. My cart was rattling around in the parking lot. I'm like, what is that noise? I lifted my purse. I'm like, oh, I just jailbroke Grandma Jenny from the Goodwill. But then she came to my house, and she stuck around for a while. But thankfully, she has now moved on.
That's hilarious. You
That's a
thrifted
good
grandma.
Story to end it on here, ladies. That's amazing stuff. Especially like I those, like Jessica, your story was quite frightening. The two of them, and Zeech with the Goodwill. I think that puts in a good solid argument that things can stick around, and that a story like
Yep.
Annabelle, even if it's been embellished,
Yeah.
there's something to it, and you
There's
got to
gotta
respect
be
it.
There's
There's
always a
something-
grain of truth
there's
to
something.
something.
where there's
Yeah.
smoke, there's fire, and where there's dolls, there's ghosts, I guess.
I think so. Well, Z, thanks so much for joining us here
Thank
on the
you
show.
so much for
Jessica,
having me.
thanks for coming back on.
Thank you.
We'll do this again with another topic.
Yes.
Annabelle, thank you for joining us as well.
Don't call her that. Jesus.
On that note, I'm Jason Hewlett, and I'll be back in 2 weeks with another Friday.
Maybe he'll be.
Maybe not. Until then, stay spooky, y'all.